Welcome to Denim-wrapped Nightmares, Tipsy Exchange podcast, where we explore the Supernatural series, episode by episode.
Over drinks, we'll discuss the lore, the gore, and what we adore about the Winchesters and their adventures.
I'm Berly, and I'm a new fan of the series.
I'm LA, and I'm here along for the ride. Now let's get tipsy.
Hello, LA.
Hey, Berly.
We made it.
Mm-hmm.
We got to the end of season 7.
We did.
Very sad.
I know you are.
No more Dick. But before we get into our season finale, let's talk about where we were for the Supernatural season finale, which was titled Survival of the Fittest. Dean and Sam prepared for a battle with Dick Roman. Special guest star James Patrick Stewart. Dick's in the final phase of his plan, and the Winchesters must team up with Cassiel, Bobby, Meg, and Kevin, the prophet, to stop him. However, Dick is one of the smartest enemies they've ever faced, so it's a mind game to see who can keep the upper hand. They didn't mention Crowley.
Oh, yeah.
They had to work with Crowley, too, y'all. It was a good, satisfactory finale. And so today, we went through the special features. And L.A. is going to take us through the season 7 special features. There were a lot. Whenever I was first looking at the menu, I didn't think it was that many. But that drive-in thing, my God.
I don't even know that the drive-in thing would really... I mean, there was a lot to that one.
Yeah, there were a lot of different little segments.
The later ones that we watched were
longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was good. I enjoyed the special features. Thorough.
I was about to say, I think these are probably my favorite so far.
Right. The only ones that I probably liked better than this is, I'm just a weirdo though. This could be totally me. I am really obsessed with like the sets and the set locations, and none of the special features focused very much on that today.
That's true. Yeah.
I really liked that one special feature. I think it was season 5 where that guy took us through the back lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like that. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I love it all.
So other than that, I would agree with you. These were really detailed. We got to hear a lot from writers and directors, which was really interesting.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, the first little mini we came to was this cute animated drive-in movie situation. Yeah. And you see the Impala drive up, and it's got the, what was it, 4?
The marquee. Yeah.
The marquee with the 4 different titles of the special features. They drive in, they get the little audio box on their door, and then
they could have my box on their door.
I know. And then the titles are up on the screen just like they were out front when they drove it. And the first one we went to was Psycho Scribes of the Supernatural. These notes I took were sparse. It went so fast. They all were like kind of talking fast, and I didn't want to keep pausing, so I'll do my best. This one was over like the myths of Tomb of Evil. I don't think I got that right. Yeah, the writers. It was Sarah, Richard, Ben, and Adam. So Sarah,
Ben Edlund is so fucking cute.
He has great hair.
He is so attractive.
You said that many times.
I know. I believe it. I think it. Congratulations, Jenny Klein. I want to hear their story. They seem like they are probably just the cutest fucking couple.
Yeah. So yeah, they were just talking about writing, and I thought it was interesting because I had the thought where at first, they were doing like the monster movie of each week, or what was it, monster of the week? Yeah. And I can't remember who it was that said it, but by episode 8, they had kind of covered as much as they felt like they could cover as far as classic monster movies went. Mm-hmm. So they had to dig a little deeper. The leviathans, God's first creation, that's from the Bible they took from. They had to, like with Bobby, I thought it was interesting that they felt they could play around and get some new ghost rules through Bobby's character, because he's the only one out of the main characters that's been a ghost.
Yeah.
So just little nuances and things they talked about like this. And then I thought it was interesting that Adam for, which episode was it with?
Vitala's
Yes.
Adam Glass.
Yeah.
He was talking about adventures in babysitting.
No, True Grit.
But the Supernatural episode was titled Adventures in Babysitting, but the inspiration for that episode was True Grit. That's the one where...
Oh, that's the name of it?
That's the name of the Supernatural episode.
I was thinking it was a different one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's the episode where the little girl is there and all that, and her dad gets taken and all that.
Yeah, but as soon as he said True Grit, I was like, oh, I get it. I see it.
Same. As soon as he said it, I realized I connected the dots. But when we watched that episode, that reference never crossed my mind.
Yeah, I would have never thought that.
But as soon as he said it, it was so obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, perfect. Perfect, like, reiteration from being inspired by that.
Somehow, I haven't connected the dots as to why, but for some reason, that somehow made me think, oh, that's why we liked this little girl character when we haven't liked so many other little girl characters.
Yeah.
Is because they had that successful template already in mind whenever they wrote this particular Too Big for My Britches little girl character. Because this Too Big for My Britches little girl character worked.
Oh, yeah.
And it hasn't quite worked in some of the previous iterations that they've tried.
You're right, yeah. Didn't think about that.
Again, I haven't connected the dots as to why. But that whenever he explained that was the first thing that popped in my head was, oh, that's why we liked that little girl.
She's a tough little shit, you know? I think that's probably why. The next one we went to was Highway to Death. And we thought it was cute because it said it was Idget Films production. And it was all about the psychology of death kind of through Bobby's eyes as he was the ghost after he died. When they said that when you die, how your life flashes before your eyes. And they said they wanted to do like a fresher perspective on that it's not always these good things that are going to pop up when you die that you're seeing. Sometimes it's the shitty stuff that happened that you didn't want to see. I thought that was interesting because I never really thought about it like that. But it's so true. Like if your whole life flashes before your eyes, it's not all going to be great.
Right.
I thought it was really sweet that they said the only reason Bobby's still around is for the boys. Like he doesn't have any other reason to be sticking around except for them and wanting to help them. And he just can't let go of them, even though it's to his own detriment where he ends up getting to that point, you know? So that was, I mean, I liked how they were explaining it all. I mean, we obviously watched it, went through it, saw it, but the way they were like giving some of the background reasonings for how they did it and why they did it, I thought was very interesting.
I agree. And it was validating because I love it whenever they dissect an episode like this and they get to the lore portion and we were right in what we chose to talk about.
Oh yeah, you caught that on
whenever
all these,
whenever we did the episode. There was an episode that we were off the mark, which we'll get there. But this one, whenever they were talking, I was like, okay, we were right on track with this one. But I agree with you. Just hearing them talk about how they approached it, and they were talking about, I think it was Sarah Gamble who said that there was a line cut out where she was talking about how, oh yeah, Jensen gets the hot chick and I get this
Miss
dude.
Nebraska.
Miss Nebraska. Yeah, Jensen gets Miss Nebraska for his Reaper and I get you, kind of thing. And I almost got like offended on the Reaper's behalf because I was like, wait a minute, I loved the Reaper in this episode. And they were saying Bobby almost needed someone who was going to be more aggressive and like scare him into being obedient.
Of course.
But I loved this Reaper. I loved that he was just over it and was like, really, really, dude. Like
jaded.
I loved it.
Oh, I did too.
Yeah.
And she was spot on saying that, sure, we could have given him Miss Nebraska, but that wouldn't have really challenged him in the way that this guy did.
Right.
She was spot on.
I loved it. Yeah. So even though it touched on a lot of the stuff we had already talked about when we covered the episode, I agree with you. It just kind of added to it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that special feature.
Well, and even Jim Beaver made a comment about it too. He's like, I guess it's in the contract that I guess Jensen's just always going to get Miss Nebraska.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
Jim Beaver had some excellent moments in these special features. He
good
had some
one-liners.
really good moments. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a hoot. That was Highway to Death. The next one we went to was Creatures from the Digital Realm. So this was kind of the CGI people, digital effects. And the main guy that talked was Ivan Hayden, and he talked so fast and made it all sound so easy that I couldn't keep up.
And he also had on a t-shirt that was from Divine, the series. And I got super distracted because I was like, why do I know that? And then I remembered John Emmett Tracy told us about that in our interview with him back after season 5.
That was a good catch.
Yeah. I was surprised that I was able to connect the dots without Googling it.
Good
like
on you.
I remembered it.
That's good.
It's because he told us that Misha wears a priest outfit in that show.
We should look it up and see if he worked on it.
He had to have. Why else would he have had on the T-shirt?
Maybe he's just friends with Misha.
Oh, I think he was doing free
Misha
advertising for
handed
his.
out.
He was doing free advertising for his little web series
Yeah.
project that was available then.
You're right.
Which, you know what? Smart Ivan.
Right?
Smart Ivan. Yeah.
Smooth. Slick.
Here we are, how many years later? And I clocked
Mhm.
it and I remembered, oh yeah, I need to Google and see if I can find that somewhere.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it yet.
Gotta find it.
Well, it wasn't available after we interviewed Jet.
Oh.
Because I Googled it after we interviewed Jet and it wasn't streaming anywhere, so I couldn't watch it anywhere.
I hate when that happens.
Me too. But maybe it's available now. I don't
True.
know.
True.
Ivan reminded me.
Somebody tell us where to find it.
I want to watch it. We want to watch it so bad. I just remember that John Emmett Tracy, he was talking about Misha's costume. And I remember you and I Googled it after we interviewed him. And we were like, oh my God. Because John Emmett Tracy's costume was like, all like the high neck kind of. Yeah. And we were like, oh my God.
He
Okay,
knows-
Jet.
He knows what we like.
Yeah. We got to go find
Still
that.
love him. Still
love him. Oh, Jet.
But back to Ivan.
Yes.
I like this guy. He was like serious, like so smart and knows his shit, but at the same time he looked so young, kind of.
Oh my God, yes.
And I was just kind of impressed with him. But he talked about how
I
basically
think he's been I want to say he's been with the show from the jump.
really
Because his name seemed very familiar to me.
he looked familiar to me from
Same.
like maybe other ones
special
that-
features. I feel like he's been on the show I feel like we've seen him in special features for at least the past 3 seasons.
I think so too.
So I do wonder, how old is he? Because he still looks very young.
Yeah. I liked that he mentioned basically what they're trying to do was cheating the philosophy of human beings with these monsters because they can't have these huge monsters and CGI shit and all that all the time. So they're literally putting the monster inside of the human being, but then manipulating it.
He was talking about how their challenge is that everything needs to be grounded in reality.
Right.
They can't do these huge, fantastical, totally unrealistic things. They have to have them always grounded in reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. I liked that too. And when they were talking about the Leviathan jaw and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
And I always love behind the scenes stuff like this where they put the dots on people specifically.
Nacho cheese. It was Nacho Cheese Chet.
Oh yeah, it was him. So they had him in specific places for like the 2D, the 3D. And then they have the actor film it, and then they go in with the computer and they do layer after layer after layer. And it's I loved seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really cool seeing how they created Chet defying like the human being mold or physiology, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how just the jaw opening, the teeth, and then the tongue moving, all of it. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I would love to sit there and watch somebody do that, like just create it all one layer at a time.
They did a pretty good job with demonstrating it. It wasn't as detailed as what you're talking
They
about.
did, but I would like, because me and I'm a nerd, I'd like to sit next to that person and then them explain it all to me, what they're doing.
Do the dots and all of that. He did explain the jawline dots, but those were the only dots he really explained.
Mm-hmm.
And there were dots up on Nacho Cheese's like forehead and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there were multiple dots that like he didn't go into much detail about. So I
Right.
agree with you. It would be interesting to sit there and watch that whole process.
Right, because like I mean, even in the computer, the way they have to fit it to the face so precisely.
And they honestly did an amazing job with taking these human faces that would suddenly turn into like these almost eels.
Yeah, like just a giant mouth.
Yeah. But I totally believed that their eyes and the top of their head and whatever was just in the back there, you know?
Yeah.
I totally believed it. So wherever they decided those jaw hinges were and everything were really good.
Yeah. And then the next one they talked about was when Cass was
Oh my God.
the season finale of season 6, or it was toward the end, where he's I don't even remember what he's doing, but he busts through that wall.
Oh, whenever he blows his load into purgatory.
Excuse me, I didn't get that right.
Yeah, it's whenever he had soaked up all those souls to become God.
Right.
And had run around trying to be God and trying to like essentially remodel the house and wasn't doing so good, and he was starting to go crazy. And Dean and Bobby convinced him, you got to go put those souls back in purgatory. And he was like, oh, okay. So it was like he was blowing his load into purgatory, trying to get rid of all those souls.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that one was similar to where
there was so much technique and digital stuff into that load, right?
Yes, you're right.
I am right.
But
it was a beautiful load.
It was very similar with putting the dots on them and then with the computer layering it through the different
levels.
Sure, yeah.
Because he was showing it, whatever he showed it the first time, I was like, I don't remember that, because it was like a rainbow shooting out of.
Yeah.
You saw. It was like this rainbow shooting out of Misha Collins' chest. I was like, wait a minute. And then he added the layer, and then added the layer, and then added the particle. And he was labeling each layer, like the particles, the light flare, his eyes,
the 3D smoke generator.
Yeah. And then whenever it was done, I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah. Like, I would love an explanation for each thing we saw, like that at least interested us. Like,
A more detailed explanation.
Right,
not just he had his title that he had given to each thing, but like I would have liked to have seen just the layer by itself. You know, like, what is that smoke? Because he was showing us,
see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was showing us, there was Castiel with the rainbow shooting out of his chest. That was like, what the fuck? That was the base.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was putting on layer after layer after layer, and he was telling us what the layer was titled. And I was seeing how it was changing the end product, right? But I would be interested to see just that layer. What's all involved in just that layer?
Right. That's what I was saying. Like, what's to sit by somebody and like see each of those. I
want more, Ivan.
Right?
Give me more. You're young, okay? I feel like you could give us some more. You still have energy.
Yeah. Then they talked about the ghosts dying this season, which you talked about a bunch. How much it was it differed from
they had
earlier.
Obviously
season.
stepped it up.
Yeah.
It was similar. It was very similar to what we've seen in previous seasons, but I just felt like in so many instances, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to, in so many instances, I feel like it has changed visually for the worse. Not that it's bad, but just, and I think I said this earlier in this season, that I think Kim Manners' influence has kind of waned off a little bit. And just the fact that they aren't allowed to have it be dark anymore, that they've been told by the executives over and over again, you know, make it brighter, make it more colorful, make it brighter, make it more colorful. And just, I think that shot wise, and think they haven't been as creative in that aspect. And I could be wrong. I could be just like talking out of my ass. And I have heard, whenever I've been listening to Supernatural, then and now, Rich and Rob have actually been complaining about that in season 6, that it's looking more like your typical season CW show. I didn't notice it so much in season 6. But I feel like it's because in season 6, I was so distracted by what the fuck is going on. I was so confused as to what's the overarching story. There was just so much going on in season 6 that was all a MacGuffin for Cass being the big bad. But in this season, I am noticing it, that it just looks different.
Yeah.
But with the ghosts, I feel like that's when I would see the ghosts, I'd be like, this is my Supernatural. This is what I remember. And particularly with them burning up, I feel like they really stepped it up this season.
Yeah. It definitely looked better.
Yeah.
They also said they were challenged in the scene with Dick Roman, where he gets the borax thrown on his face, but then he just kind of wipes his face. But creating those burns apparently was quite a challenge for them, and doing the 2D and 3D layering. So all that was quite fascinating.
I remember the dick part was because he was moving. He's like walking and moving.
Right.
And so they were having to accommodate all of that, which I've never thought about. You know?
Well, like for the ghosts, they said they just started with the background, really, then superimposed the actress into that background. Yeah. Because she was kind of static, and then they just did their thing.
Yeah, they said they filmed the actress on a green screen, which I never thought of that before. So they're getting a shot of the background that they supposedly are going to have the ghost on, but then they film what the person, the actor or actress, actually does on a green screen, and then layer in everything.
Right. So that was a good one. I mean, they're all good, but Next up, we went to Weekend in Lilydale.
Which was not what I thought it was going to be.
Right. Well, you got me excited because I was like, oh, cool. But then, I mean, it was still interesting. Though.
It was still interesting, but it just wasn't what we were expecting.
True.
What we were expecting, we were really excited about.
Yeah. But this one was talked about the actual Fox sisters in the 1800s. And that they would claim to hear rapping and knocking noises in their house. Kind of, I guess, due to them, so many mediums have flocked to this area over the years. And this is actually the most mediums in one town in the U.S., I believe, right?
Right. And this is where we actually missed the mark on our lore for the episode, The Mentalists, which we weren't completely off the mark. Like, our lore, I feel like, was still interesting and still relevant.
Oh, yeah.
But I did not even think to Google if the Fox sisters were real,
right.
Which I almost want to slap my own wrist for it, because I Googled if the Campbell brothers were real. And that was just like a one-off comment made by the guy in the museum. It didn't even cross my mind to Google if these two sisters who were the center of the fucking episode were real. I did not think to do it. So we are going to include a link about the Fox sisters in our show notes if you want to read more about them.
Yeah, because I didn't know that apparently they ran into some Quaker couple at some point. And they were so influenced by the sisters, they started spiritualism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why Margaret did it, but in 1880, she kind of revealed their tricks and things that they did to create what they claimed they were hearing. So she ruined it for everybody. And they all, I guess there were 3 sisters total. And by 1893, they had all died of alcoholism because Margaret gave up their gig.
Yeah.
So that's really sad. I'm not going to mention the glove compartment or the horn.
That was silly.
Yeah.
What was the point of that?
Right.
I will. And then we could click on the glove compartment or the steering wheel, and it like kept flashing at us whenever we were on this screen. So I'm thinking, okay, let's go click on it. Clearly they're wanting us to. It keeps flashing like the little light on it. So I go and click on the glove compartment, and it just opens up and shows a handgun. And then closes immediately and returns me to the home part. I was like, okay, well, that was silly and a waste of time. Let's go see if I can I honk the horn? What's going to happen when I go hit the horn? Nothing happened when I hit. It just kept bumping me back to the home part. So I don't know if just like my Blu-ray player does not have the capability of the Blu-ray players of 2012, and it was not participating with what I was supposed to be able to do. But I thought I was at least going to get to be able to be like, beep, beep, something. No.
Yeah.
So fail on that. What was the point of that in the special feature?
I do not know.
But otherwise, that little drive-in section was cute. And then we noticed up in the corner, there was a little concessions icon thing. What we got was not what I expected. I thought it was going to be something silly, but it was like a whole other section. So I'll stop talking because LA, take it over.
Like when you walk in and they have the kind of huge movie posters lit up on the walls. And so each one we went to, the first one we went to was Prosthetic Men 7. This one was Toby Lindala and Benson Masav. I'm sorry. I'm probably not pronouncing that right.
Well, just Benson.
Yeah.
Mr. Benson.
And they talked about all the prosthetics for season 7. And it's, just any addition to the body, anything. And Benson, the whole time in his interview, had monster hand going, which we enjoyed.
It was so cute because he's just using his hands to talk and just making sure it was in the screen, but it wasn't overly done. And he never drew attention to it other than just somebody normally talking with their hands. So I thought it was really cute.
And then Toby talks about how the process, they take a picture first, then they're going into sculpting and molding, and then whatever else additional wise needs to be added for whatever has become of whatever part or whatever is needed. And then they talked about when Cass's belly was stretched, which you were very interested in.
I was, because I remember that episode and I remember freaking out over that shot.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, what they said they did was the last thing that would have popped into my mind as to how they did it.
It kind of seemed a little simple to me.
Yeah.
Just they created this silicone belly I mean, I would have to assume maybe they molded that to him.
Yeah, that's what they said. They said that the top part was like a harder thing, and then it was just the belly that was like a jelly thing.
That's right.
So they could affix it to him or to a dummy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then they just cut a hole in the back of his coat, and they literally just put their fingers through the silicone.
Yeah, they just reached around him and did it.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I totally was picturing so many different things in my head that were way more complicated than that as to how they achieved that. It was really interesting. And they were doing little joke things with prosthetics throughout the whole little video.
True.
And they showed us the turducken monster, which was the grossest monster of the season, in my opinion. Just those eyes and just...
Yeah. I liked, they also showed the lady that was killed in the dryer and how they purposely had some of the like bits of her hair coming out with
the chunk of her scalp and all that. Yeah.
And then the heart and the cupcake, they did that.
That was so cute. That was so cute.
And then it was cute at the end. Benson's standing there with his arm held up, and Toby's got a little machete and just chops his arm off and it starts bleeding. I thought that was cute. And then we go to Doppelganger's Ball.
Oh, wait. Toby and Benson, they also talked about the turducken sandwich. And they were talking about how it was such a challenge to work with the meat and everything. They're like, we're used to working with the plastic, that we set it how we want it to be, and that's that. And he was like, when it was this, it was kind of falling apart. But I feel like they made it work. That sandwich looked amazing.
It was gross. Yeah.
It was so gross, and it just oozed out perfectly whenever it just started it was so good.
Yeah.
They didn't say how they made that happen, though. If it was like a pump under the table, that's what I was wanting to know. How'd you make it start puking? So they didn't give me the information I wanted, but I was still happy they covered the turducken sandwich.
Yeah, that's like the heart and the cupcake. They didn't really tell us how they did those things, but they
kind of showed us. They showed us that there was a little pump out to the side, and they were like squeezing it to make the heart.
Okay, well, I missed that.
Oh.
The next one was Doppelganger's Ball, and it's the one where Sam and Dean are not Sam and Dean. And they talk about how the doppelganger is German for double walker. And I forget the guy's name. His name was Percy something.
I didn't get that one either.
I didn't catch. It's Percy with a B and then an S. I don't know. I'm sorry. But he was a real person and saw his doppelganger and then died in a bay, I think a week later. And then, of course, famously, Abe Lincoln thought he saw his doppelganger and then died, was killed. Sarah Gamble had talked about how they had this slugline Clone Wars for a long time before they even got to this episode to make it, but they had been wanting to do it for quite a while. And then I guess the opportunity finally presented itself, and they were able to do it with this one. I don't remember the name of that episode.
/ fiction.
Okay. Then the next one was Trial of the Winchesters, going back to the episode with Osiris.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the name of that one?
What was that one? Defend Your Life.
Okay. So they just talked about the god Osiris, which I think we've talked about too.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
We didn't talk about his sister wife or his brother husband. You told everybody that if they wanted to go read about it, to go check the show notes because it was interesting, but it was a lot.
Yeah, it was long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, just about he's the judge, jury, executioner, god of the underworld. And yeah, his wife was very dedicated to him. She went and found him twice, resurrected him twice. He was the one who, with the weight, when somebody died, they put a heart in one weight and a feather in the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if the heart weighed more than the feather, you were a goner.
Yep.
I feel like I knew that, but I didn't remember it until they were talking about it on this thing.
Mm-hmm. I knew it from art history. I took that in college. I took specifically Egyptian art history. And also, what is it? Moon Knight. They revisited some Egyptian lore with that Marvel show recently. So I had that kind of all fresh in my mind before we watched that episode. I still say that actor should have been more naked.
Really would have been back in the day.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Then the next one was Double Winchester Action. And this was the one where it was the Kitsune? Is that it?
It was like 2 trailers almost. It
Right.
wasn't so much full features, I felt like. It was 2 trailers that kind of had a little bit of information in them. But yeah, you're right. It was the Kitsune and the Vitala were the 2 monsters that they covered in this feature.
Right. And so like the little trailer for Kitsune looked like a Japanese film trailer. It had the Japanese writing and just the style of it. And then the Vitala was in Indian, more like an Indian film with the coloring. And then...
Which we hit the nail on the head with that lore.
That's true.
We did good with that lore, yeah. They kept zooming in on the Kitsune necklace during it. I was like, yeah, you'll keep zooming in on it here because it's important to the lore, but you're not talking about why it's important to the lore. And the episode never addressed why it was important to the lore.
True.
Thank goodness our listeners are going to be informed because we covered that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, guys.
All right. Next up was Monster from Planet Mythos. And this is the one where they talked about the Jersey Devil. And it was a woman, I forget where. It was her 13th child, and she said, don't want him. Bad luck.
Yeah, we did this lore.
Right. I didn't write much for this one. I don't remember. The only other thing I have is that the leviathans were from the Book of Job.
Yeah, because we covered our lore pretty well this season. The only one where we missed the mark based off of the special features was the Fox sisters.
True. Yeah.
For the episode The Mentalists. And they also talked about Lilydale and said that Lilydale was actually a city. I'm telling y'all, whenever I Googled psychic cities, most psychic cities in the country, most psychic cities in America, I Googled like every different kind. I didn't ever get a Lilydale response. So not saying it's wrong, but it wasn't a top Google result.
Well, maybe not now.
Not now.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the drive-in stuff.
There was one more. There was time after time after time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But it was just, it literally just showed scenes from that episode.
It was just like a montage.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, I remember we both thought like, oh, it's going to be costumes because we've covered prosthetics. We've covered this. We've covered that. It's going to be costumes. It was just like, nope, just a bunch of different clips from that episode. It was just like a montage kind of thing. Montage isn't the word I want, but
it works.
Okay. I was like, I'm trying to think of, it's not collage. It's not montage. I don't know, but
it's just a montage of the scenes from that episode. Yeah.
And that was it for the drive-in.
Yes. And then it was the gag reel.
So the drive-in was on the last disc of the season. And then we had to go back to the first disc of the season for the rest of the special features. Oh no, the gag reel was also on the last disc. You are correct.
I don't know the discs.
So
you're gonna have to.
I'm telling you, the gag reel was on the last one.
Okay.
It was cute. It was This was one of my favorite gag reels, I think, out of quite a few that we've seen.
Yeah,
it was really cute.
It was.
Jim Beaver had a bunch of cute little moments.
He did
in the gag reel. I'll have to see if I can find it on YouTube.
Oh, to post it, yeah. It was cute. They had some pretty cute moments. Some of it like just silly face making, dancing. Yeah. Like, I mean,
like always.
Yeah,
yeah. All of the gag reels have that, but there was some really cute little moments. Like I said, the ones that stuck out to me the most were Jim Beaver moments.
Yeah. After that, it was Jensen Sings outtake.
Oh yeah, that was on the first disc. That we had to go back to the first disc, and so the Jensen Sings outtake, which I'll have to see if I can find as well, because I don't know if we can do this justice just talking about it. But it is from the episode where Jensen is lip syncing the song by Air Supply, I'm All Out of Love. But this outtake, he is not lip syncing.
Right.
He is just fully committed to singing and going at it as best he can. And it was cute. It was entertaining. Honestly, I felt like that should have been what was in the episode, not the I'm lip syncing and I'm trying to not distract you. Like, he just was going all out. Now, with that being said, I understand how this version of him singing wasn't as realistic because he was not looking at the road at all. His hands weren't on the wheel half the time.
True.
So I guess I understand why they couldn't use this version.
Too silly for it.
It was cute. It was cute.
After that one, it was scoring washboards. It started out with Phil Segresha talking about the composers that they used for that, I think, all of these seasons. And it's Jay Grushka and Chris Lennertz.
Yeah, Jake Greska and Chris Leonard. And they normally split them 50-50, where they don't work together. They just each take an episode.
Yeah, they leapfrog each episode.
Yes. And this time, because there were 23 episodes this season for some inexplicable reason, they were like, oh, well, we'll tag team one episode.
So, yeah, they split an episode. Still didn't really work together on it, but they split the episode the time after time.
Mm-hmm.
And
with the 40s music.
Right. And they used the California Feet Warmers, who was a band, like this young band that Phil liked and suggested. Jay and Chris they've never worked in a room together. No. Except for, I guess, for this one episode when they all originally got together. So it was really neat. I didn't write too much because I was too fascinated watching it. Mm-hmm. The band,
it was cute to watch.
Adorable, loved their sound. One of the guys was saying that really these composers only have about 5 days to work on their score for an episode, which is
insane.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And then it shows them actually recording at Henson Studios, which I loved because they picked this particular studio because they still had so many of the microphones from the 40s. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to get that exact sound, which I love. I love when people do like pay attention to detail like that.
Yeah.
Just that little authenticity. And so it was cute to watch. You get to see Jay kind of composing them at one point, and then you get to see Chris composing them. And you could tell like they're having a good time. I mean, they're young, so they're probably loving every minute of it. So they let them come back to the sound booth, and it was cute. They're all sitting there watching, and they had the little screen up playing that episode, which they don't know where their actual music's going to go into it. But I think they had it playing, and they got to see that. So what a cool thing for that little band.
Yeah,
when they were that young to be a part of that.
You could tell when the band even walked in and they were putting them in each of their little separate cubicles too, that they were already kind of going like, oh, this is going to be new. This is unique.
They're all grinning, just like chatting with each other. It was really cute. This was probably one of my favorite ones out of all the special features.
Yeah. It was cute. It was very cute. And you're right. Like Jake Ruska and Chris, they were cracking me up with how they were having a blast. You could tell they were having a blast. I think it was, what's his last name?
Leonard's.
Chris Leonard's. I think he even said that whenever it was done, that both he and Jake Ruska were like, okay, this is awesome. When do we get to do it again?
Yeah.
When do we get to tag team another episode together?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really cute.
I mean, it all looked like quite an undertaking too, just for this one episode. So impressive.
But to your point, it made like a huge difference. I remember when we were watching that episode that we noticed right away whenever Dean was spit out into the 1940s and came running through that alley, we noticed the music.
Oh yeah.
Like it's one of those things that you notice right away, but you might not even necessarily notice that you notice it. But I'm sure everybody did. That whenever Dean came running through that alley, the first thing that let you know he was in the 40s was the music.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
So it made an impact.
Well, and they even talked about that it had to be at a perfect point in that scene to switch from like where he was to this time.
Yeah.
And they just did it so well. Mm-hmm. That one was really good. The next one was directing the Supernatural.
Why is the there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or were you not looking at the title being like, why is it directing the Supernatural, not just direct? Because you're not actually directing real life vampires and ghosts.
Well, they're taking it seriously.
You're directing Supernatural, not the Supernatural, but no.
It is the Supernatural, Berly. But this was probably my second favorite. I just love behind the scenes stuff. I love hearing about how people got started in the industry. So I loved this part where each of them kind of talked about it. I didn't get everybody's because I don't think each of them talked about it.
I was going to say not all of them did.
Yeah.
Robert Singer and Phil Segrisha did.
Right.
But I didn't hear the rest of them talking about it.
So
I wanted to hear Sarah's background, and she didn't. Like, I was waiting for it, and she didn't share it.
Well, I didn't get Jerry Wanick.
He didn't share it.
John McCarthy.
He didn't share it.
Or John Showalters, and I would have liked to have known.
Same.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But the ones we did get, Rob said he started out as a PA, which I think most people do, and then
the editing with Robert Singer's portion was distracting to me.
Yeah, you had an issue.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? They were like doing all these different shots of Robert Singer while he was talking about this, what LA is about to talk about. And they showed like this slow-mo of him slowly smiling. And I was like, oh my God, Mr. Singer.
He's a serious director. They wanted to get that point across.
No, I felt like they had him flirting with me through the TV.
God. No.
I was like, what is happening? I rewound it and played it for you. I was like,
I know.
Look at what he's doing.
He's eating it up, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, but yes, he started as a PA. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so he worked his way up, and then he went into producing and writing. And apparently some of the stuff he had written, he wasn't too fond of how the director portrayed it. So he was like, okay, let me give this a shot. Phil started as a projectionist at a movie theater.
How
and
cute
he
is
said
that?
he was like, I've never worked in any other industry. He just started in that and then found his way
Went
into
into
it.
editing. Yeah, it's so cute.
And then I liked that Jensen attributed his directing to Kim Manners, who told him, I think he said the first day that he would end up directing an episode. And I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
And then they talked about kind of what inspired them. And I liked that Ben Edlin,
He's so cute.
when he was 9, he said that the Red Baron he felt needed to be an epic film.
The Snoopy
Yeah.
Red Baron, yeah.
Yeah, and he just felt that needed to be a film. I feel like that all the time when I listen to certain songs and things like that, or just you hear a story and it's like, that should be a fucking movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's so cute at 9. He's like, wait a minute, this needs to be a film. I can't remember who it was, but they said that, their job as a director is to make the audience either cringe, laugh, or cry.
That was Phil.
Was it Phil? Okay.
That was Phil, yeah.
And I thought about that. I thought, oh, I guess he's right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know who said this, but I think it might have been Ben. I could be wrong. But they said that the biggest brain on set is you as the director in terms of the story. Because really, it's all in your brain how you want it to play out, and you're directing all these. You're kind of the puppeteer telling everybody where to go and what to do and how you want it to be.
Right.
I also like that Phil said how he was in editing and it helped him become a better director, which I absolutely believe. Because once you have that under your belt, and then as a director, you can kind of I'm sure that helped him scene by scene, figuring out how the transitions he wanted and things like that, just in his mind as he was getting it filmed.
I liked the variety of people they had in this segment for that reason that you just talked about. Because they have Robert Singer, who came from the background of being a producer, writing, what have you. Then you had Jensen Ackles, who came from the background of having been an actor on the other side of the camera and wanting to know like what it's like behind the camera. Then you have Phil Segresha coming from the aspect of editing. You have Jerry Wanick coming from the production standpoint. He did sets, like the production design kind of sets kind of aspect. So he's coming from there and thinking, oh, I want to be, I just loved the variety of perspectives that were included in this special feature was really impressive to me.
Yeah.
I wish we had gotten to hear a little bit more about Showalter's background, because I don't know how he got started. And I've liked a lot of his episodes. And also, how tall is he?
Yeah, he looked like a big guy.
He looks like he's a tall
Tall-wise,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah. How tall is he? I need to know.
I think Ben talked about how one of the biggest learning things and aspects of it is cutting material that you really may not need. And as a director, even though you want it in there, and it's for the story, but you have to make those decisions and cut things that aren't necessary. I forget who said this, but that as a director, you're on some little island and mortars are coming at you everywhere that you have to diffuse and figure out what to do. And you're always having to make compromises. Really, at the end of the day, with the compromises, you just have to tell yourself, does it hurt the story?
Yeah.
I think Robert Singer said that one. And then again, like we talked about with True Grit, some of them talked about their inspiration for certain episodes. And John McCarthy was one with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
For the episode with Charlie, where she's on the computer and what she's seeing is coming up typed out on the screen over her face. And when he said, again, same thing, like when he said that, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I get it. I see it.
I love the inspirational pools that they put into
Me too.
These episodes.
Robert Singer talked about, if you want to learn about shooting, just look at Spielberg. He talked about Spielberg a couple of times. And Phil mentioned Fargo, True Romance, Lawrence of Arabia as inspirations for him for certain things. And then they all kind of talked about, sometimes on your first day or you get there and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, can I do this? Am I going to be able to pull this off? And like doubting yourself. And he says, I think it was Phil again, said it's never easy. It's the toughest job, but it's the best job.
Mm-hmm.
And then I liked that Jensen, I guess they apparently told Jensen about Phil saying something about how you're doubting yourself at first all the time.
Right.
And Jensen said, I'm glad you told me he said that because that makes me feel a lot better. Which I was like, man, I would too if I was in his shoes because, he's so much more green than them.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear that, probably it was like, it's not just me.
Just being a director, like hearing Robert Singer's viewpoint where he's talking about being a writer and seeing the output of his work and being like, that's not what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine the pressure of being a director that you're taking not only what the writer had in mind with telling the story, but what the actors each have in mind with telling the story, with all these people, with what they're all visualizing whenever they're doing their part, per se, with telling the story. And you're the one at the helm who's having to put all the shots together and tell the story for them. And the editor, too.
Oh, yeah.
For that finished product,
I think it must be, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the hardest things as a director would be directing a film about an actual person who's still living.
Oh my God.
You would, need to reference for the film and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
To have that pressure would be huge.
Well,
on top of just directing a movie in general.
Any person who, living or dead, who like actually existed.
Yeah.
With fantasy,
True, yeah,
I get your point. With fantasy, there's a little bit more leeway, I think. But you're right. Ugh.
That'd be hard because you just want to do it right and honor that person so well.
So that was the special features. I am going to try and see if I can't find these special features on YouTube. So check the show notes for YouTube videos because I know that there's at least a couple because I spotted them on YouTube already. So check the show notes for these special features if you're wanting to watch them yourself. So for season 7, something interesting I've noticed whenever we started coming into season 6, season 7, which we'll talk about both of these seasons in our Sarah Gamble extravaganza later, but a lot of people were saying season 7's the worst. Season 7's the worst. And I even had a couple of people where they commented on something on Instagram or Facebook or what have you, where they were saying, oh yeah, season 7's, that's the worst. And I replied to their comment and straight up asked them, why do you say that? Because I've seen this everywhere where people are saying this and I don't understand why. Neither of those people replied to me. Now, again, it was only 2 or 3 people. It wasn't like a whole lot of people. But I do think it's interesting that none of them replied to me. Nobody's been able to give me a reason as to why season 7 is, to so many people, considered to be the worst season. So I Googled it, and all I was able to find, other than Reddit posts, were a couple of articles on comic book, CBR.com. And it's saying that a lot of people consider this season to be the worst season, A, because of how Castiel is treated, B, because of Bobby Singer being killed in this season, which, kind of understandable. And then C, apparently the Leviathans were considered to be like a horrible villain. They were, quote, the Leviathans were an annoying supernatural villain.
Okay. I think I told you by the end, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Wrap this up on the Leviathan. I'm good. We're good.
We're good.
Move on.
Same.
But I was never like, ugh, this is so annoying.
Agreed. It said there are certain villains in Supernatural that most fans despise, such as Azazel, the yellow-eyed demon, and the angel Zachariah. Other villains, such as Lucifer and Crowley, were beloved by viewers despite their heinous deeds. The complexity within the villain arcs makes Supernatural one of the most immersive fantasy worlds in TV history. However, Other villains were despised because of their inclusion in the series, such as the Leviathan. So you just hate them because they were in the show at all?
Huh.
From their introduction, which led to the temporary demise of Cassiel, fans were not thrilled with this big bad. The ridiculousness of the Leviathan arc continued to frustrate viewers. So they just hated them from the get-go because they were the downfall of Castiel, I guess. Listen, I loved them.
I was about to say, like,
I disagree. I'm sorry. I disagree. Like I've said, if this is the worst of the seasons, we've got 8 more to go.
Right.
If this is the worst of it, I'm good. Like
right.
I'm ready.
And don't get me wrong, like nobody likes it when like one of their favorite characters is killed off, but I mean, you kind of knew he was going to come back.
Which one? Oh, Castiel? I know that I heard that whenever he was killed off, it was originally supposed to be the end of it, but then they had to bring him back because so many fans were vocal about it that the executives actually were like, you're not permanently getting rid of that character, right? Like, you're bringing him back.
Oh,
I've heard this talked about on Supernatural Then and Now, and also I feel like Misha talked about it on Kings of Con a while ago. So I've heard about it from a couple of different places that it was originally supposed to be the end of him.
Oh, wow.
But then Castiel was originally supposed to be just like a 1 or 2 or 3 episode character from the get-go. He actually was never intended to be a permanent fixture. But he came back. Like, that's my whole thing.
Right.
He came back. So in the end of it, we're now what? This was 2012. And people are still going, worst season ever. You know he comes back.
Right.
So why are you hating on the season now at this point? All I can think is that people who hate season 7 aren't fans of camp. They're probably people who didn't particularly like Monster Movie, you know, the episodes like that tend to be favorites of you and
right, that are different.
Yeah. You and I love those. We think they're excel above they're just wonderful.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that you and I are like, this was fun.
Mm-hmm.
This was a fun little departure. Yeah. Especially after last season where it was so serious and so grim with Soulless Sam and all the backstabbing and all. It was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the camp. I enjoyed the dick.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So I don't get it. If this is the worst it gets, I'm looking forward to what's coming up next.
Yeah.
This was not bad. I don't know why people thought it was.
I don't get it.
Don't get it at all. Okay, so speaking of this season, what were your 2 favorite episodes? And feel free to discuss episodes that didn't quite make the top 2, but you would like to talk about them.
Okay. One of my favorites was Shut Up, Dr. Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Because just the nostalgia of having some of the Buffy characters be in the episode, to see them, and then how cute it was that at the end, Sam and Dean are counseling this troubled couple to calm them down and get back together. There were a couple other aspects to the whole episode that I really liked, but those were the things that stuck out to me and I really liked. And then I also loved Time After Time.
I knew that was going to be one of yours.
Because I love it. I love a time travel. And the suits, I still remember them. I love those outfits, all of it. It was
music,
so good.
everything.
I mean, and then, just the Elliot Ness coming into play, the music. Yeah, I loved it. So, what about you?
Those were very cute.
Oh, and I will say, the
you
episode.
have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, the honorable mentions would be the ones with Garth.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed those episodes. He just kind of made each episode. He was so cute.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to bounce off of yours for my first favorite that I'm going to say, which I'll be honest, whenever we watched it the first time, it wasn't a favorite at the time. But just looking back, I have to say /fiction, because coming to your Garth point, that's the episode that gave us Frank Devereaux.
Oh, that's right.
We met him the first time where he like smashes Sam's laptop and is doing their pictures and getting them all ready to go underground and everything, which was just so fun. And that's the first episode where we got to see Mr. Dick Roman.
Oh, okay.
And he told us how much he loves a muffin.
Oh, that's right. Of course, yes.
We also had the doppelgangers in that one.
Oh, that's right.
And there was that really cute sheriff in there who arrested them and didn't believe them at first and then helped them. And unfortunately, he got chomped by the end. And
that was a good one.
We had nacho cheese in the basement with Bobby.
Yeah, that kind of kicked it all off.
Yeah, I remember when we watched it that I felt like it kind of dragged on a little bit. But I feel like it's just because there was so much going on in that episode at once. And just looking back, it really was a game changer for me in season 7, as to being like, okay, like, let's go. So that's why I'm going to pick slash fiction.
Okay.
And then the second episode that I'm going to pick is one of my favorites. And if you ask me on another day, I might go a different way here. But I'm going to go with the unexpected. And I'm going to say Repo Man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one where we had the serial killer who had been possessed years ago, and they got information out of him, and then he wasn't possessed, and he wanted to be possessed again because he liked it, and he wanted to keep killing people and all of that kind of stuff. Like that, it was just so different.
Yeah.
It was so different from anything we'd seen in Supernatural before. I mean, we'd seen some episodes where just people were the villain, but they're normally things like the Benders or the girl in the wall. These just extraordinary cases. And this was just this sweet, sweet little guy.
Yeah.
Who just likes murdering people, you know?
Just loved it.
I don't know. I thought it was a unique little episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then my little honorable mention, as like, if you were to ask me on another day, this might make my top episode, is the Reading is Fundamental episode.
Yep.
Where we got Cass in the psych ward who wakes up and Kevin Tran is introduced.
Oh, yeah.
There was just so much.
That is a good one.
It was so good, but there was just so much that happened in it. It was just so chaotic. So I liked it, but it just got inched out. I'm going to go with Repo Man over that one. And then I actually have another honorable mention, which is the girl with the Dungeons and Dragons tattoo.
Yeah, that I loved Charlie.
I liked Charlie a lot. We got some good dick in that episode too.
True.
There was some really good dick. But because whenever he did that stand thing that he did, you know?
I don't remember.
Or dick did like that and he stood up.
Don't remember.
And then he didn't unbutton his jacket.
Oh, okay.
If he had unbuttoned his jacket, maybe it would have made the top 2.
Oh, just for that.
But he didn't.
Okay.
He didn't. James Patrick Stewart, you didn't unbutton your jacket. You just did the thing like that where he stood and he just straightened and that was it. So it's not in the top 2.
Interesting. Okay.
But it was a really cute episode. It was one that I was seriously considering. Those two I was seriously considering. Reading is Fundamental and Girl with the Dungeons and Dragons tattoo. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with slash fiction and Repo Man. It was a good season.
I just don't think it was that bad.
I don't either.
I don't really see why they hate it, but whatever.
I agree.
To each their own. Well,
with that being said, for our toast to close it out, as is tradition with our season finales, we'll be saying R.I.P. L-O-V-E to those who were recurring characters throughout the season. And yet we are saying goodbye to you. We don't plan to see you in season 8. First off, goodbye to Dr. Gaines, a.k.a. Dr. Sexy. LA, you liked this one a lot. Played by Cameron Bancroft.
Chet, as you like to call him, Nacho Cheese.
Nacho Cheese.
Played by Sean Owen Roberts.
Frank Devereaux. Played by Kevin McNally.
And Edgar, played by Benito Martinez.
Dick Roman. Mr. Richard Roman. Played by James Patrick Stewart.
And the one, the only, last but not least, Bobby Singer, played by Jim Beaver.
Aww. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Denim-wrapped Nightmares.
Follow us on Twitter or Instagram, leave a review, and let us know how we can get involved in the fandom.
This was fun, jerk.
It always is, bitch.